Now let's have a look at some additional transactions we can use to complete this new hires profile. Now from the main menu, in the HR Master Data group, double click on Maintain, and remember you can always right click on this to create a favorite if you're going to be using it many times, and when you do that it will appear here at the top. Let's double click, and you notice that our employee Jack Venga is not there anymore, so we're going to search for him. Now if you remember his employee ID number, you can just type it in, but we're going to click on this little button here and type in Venga, press enter, and you'll see it's that Jack Venga. And it's always a good idea to double check either through birth date or the personnel number. So it's 70298. Double click, and this is where we left off. Now in the core employee info tab, click on maternity protection parental leave and click on the create button on the top left. Now on this screen, confirm that it is Mr. Jack Venga's record, and we're going to actually specify the start date of this event. So let's say he wants to start maternity on February the 15th, 2016, or we parental, all the way to, let's say he wants to take to 06, which is June the 1st, 2016. Now we need to specify what the pregnancy notification date is, which is today. So his wife would have notified it, he would have notified it. The expected delivery date, let's say, would be 02/10/2016, and the actual delivery date we'll leave it blank because we don't know that. So down here automatically the system will flag that it is a parental leave for male because Jack Venga is a male, and it's extended for 37 weeks. And it's also flagging when the expected leave is. And we use this for planning purposes, so quite often when there's delays and it's a senior or key person that we need in the factory or the office, we might convince them to maybe hold off on their leave for a week or two, depending on the expected delivery date. And also keep in mind that in different countries and different states and different provinces there are various rules or non-existing rules for when the mother can take time off maternity leave, and also when the father can parental leave. So let's save this record and see what happens. There we go. Now you come to this screen and it's giving you error message that says record does not exist, and that's fine. So we're just going to click the back button, click yes, and you might have to do that a couple of times to get out of this record. Now let's have a look. There is a check mark next to maternity protection parental leave, so there is a record. And at the top, click on the overview button, and you'll see that this absence has been future logged in. Now let's click the back button. Let's have a look at some more. So I think we're done with this here. Let's go over to employee contract data and let's see what we have. So we've done the organizational assignment. We've done the personal data. Let's have a look at what contract elements refers to. So click here and click create. And it is Jack Venga, right? So the event that we're about to put in starts today, or started yesterday, I suppose, and goes on forever. So let's see if we can change maybe the contract type. It's an unlimited contract, so it means we've hired the person. It's not like we've hired them for a year or anything like that. In some organizations, we could change to tenured, and tenured in our sense would mean they're off probation, and that they, or if they're union, it means that they're vested in the union. We can't get rid of them. Sometimes the union has a longer probationary period of 1 or 2 years. Usually, you know, there might be only a 3 or 6 month period. So we could change the tenured and a bunch of other codes that I'm not sure what they mean. But whatever it is that you need to change from unlimited to maybe instead of firing the guy, we'll put him on a limited contract, etc. So you can make a number of changes here. And also look at this box. It says, did we give them a competition clause or non-competition clause? So sometimes when an employee works for you and the contract is over or they get terminated, there's a clause that says they can't work in a certain area or in a certain industry for a number of days. Now down here we're going to specify his long-term and short-term disability rules. So for example, if he's on sickness or illness of some sort and possibly even family care leave, how many days do we continue his pay? And you could also say months, weeks, or years. And also, what is a supplement for sick pay? So for his class of employees, we will supplement his pay, top it up to the full pay up to 6 months, and then after that possibly your insurance, either your short-term or your long-term disability would kick in. Now we can also put a note in terms of special rules here. We'll have a look at that at some other point. So down here, there's some default periods. So for example, for this job, how many standard months of probation are there? Typically, we would get 3 months, which is called statutory probationary period, and this employee does qualify for that. So after 3 months on the job, or you can choose it to days, weeks, or even years or months, they will be off probation. And if they were to quit, the employer would have to give them 3 months notice, and the employee would have to give 3 months notice. Now, we usually don't do that in a Canadian context because it is fixed how much notice a person would need to give you, but in certain jurisdictions you might have some sort of legal entitlement to that. And if the person had a foreign work permit, you might actually put in some sort of a code here as well. So let's have a look. Right? When does it expire? When does a work permit expire? So quite often an employer for foreign workers will start the process through their legal team to get that work permit renewed. So let's save this record and click the back button and say yes. There we go. So let's have a look at internal data. Click this button. And let's take a look. So this is some additional information about the employee. So let's have a look. Did the employee work for us before or in another business unit? Did they have a previous personnel number or employee ID? And that's really handy to consolidate. So for example, if we had records about Jack Venga based on another number, we always want to make sure that we're looking at both numbers as one person. Down here, if we gave the person a car, we would actually put the value of the car, the license plate number, and whatever asset number is. So that would be an accounting asset allocation number. And down here we could specify what building number the person works in, what room number, and what's their in-house telephone. So let's do this. The guy works in building 402 and room number A116, and his extension is 6048, and his alternate extension is 6049. Now we're not giving him a car, and he didn't have a previous personnel number. So let's save this record and go back. Now let's have a look at planned working time. Click the create button. Now it says that he is on a normal work schedule as opposed to things such as flex time, etc., which would be standard. So unless we understand what each of these means, we're just going to leave it at the default. And that's an important rule. If you're not sure, always pick the first thing available to you. Now his time management status is indicated as no time evaluation. And that means that he's, let's say, salaried, and we're not actually going to keep tabs on every minute that he's working for us. But in the case of hourly people, you might have a time evaluation through timesheets or punch cards for actual times and so on. So let's do no time evaluation, and let's determine his work week would be Friday to Friday. So I mean, we could call him in any 5 days over the period. Do we determine his work week to be Monday to Sunday? And I'm not sure what fire and so on. I suppose that would be for a municipality. So I'm going to leave it as this, which is a standard 7-day work week. And is he a part-time employee? Yes or no? And does he have additional time ID, which means some jobs require an employee to go on their own time to perform certain actions, and do we allocate any sort of money or pay in lieu of or time in lieu of for that? So down here it's indicating that the employment percent is 100%, which means he's doing 100% of the job or the position that he's been allocated. And down here I typed in 8 hours per day, and later when you save it and you go back to view the screen, it'll actually update these numbers for you. Right now you're probably not looking at them, but they will update. So 40 hours a week, 173.6 a month, and 2,080 per year. So we have to think about it. Those are the number of hours that they're getting paid for, but that's not necessarily the number of hours that we're getting work out of them, because there might be meal breaks involved. And of course there are 5 weekly work days. Now this area here is important if your work schedule rule is flex time. So in the case of flex time, we don't tell an employee you have to be here 8 to 4 or 9 to 5. We say fill in 35 or 40 hours a week, and you tell us how little hours you can work in a day and the most you can work in a day. And keep in mind, employment standards laws require that you can't work more than X number of hours a day. Minimum is fine. You can work 1 minute and get paid for it. So an employee can be flexible in terms of how they can complete a schedule. So possibly some guy can say, I'm going to work like 10 hours a day, over 4 days to fulfill my 40 hours, and that would be considered flex time. So let's save this record.